and classical music affiliates here, and thanks for being a part of the San Antonio Film Festival today. And there is a special guest. We have a short time for to tell some stories about the production of this film and also learn a little bit about his life as well. I'd like to welcome down to the stage here Peter Coyote, who's going to roll in this film. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Can you hear us okay, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this working?
Very good. Very good.
Yes.
Is this mic working?
Yes.
Great.
All right. First of all, thank you very much for your generous time in coming to be here. We really appreciate that.
Oh, this is hardly a sacrifice. I love film festivals. I love Texas. This is a great film festival. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, maybe talk a little bit about this film and then a little bit about your career as well in the short time we have here, is first of all, with this film, your character is quite mysterious. I mean, my kids saw this film for the first time actually only about a week ago. And so they're, as an audience member, when you first see this film, you kind of wonder about your character at first and what his motives are. And I was wondering what Steven Spielberg told you when he explained to you this part and asked you how you wanted to play it.
Well, he didn't put that much in words. Steven sent a script up to me with a guy who delivered it and sat in my living room while I read it, and then he took it back. But I could see that in the beginning of the film, they're trying to create a suspense, like there was the kids' world, and then there was this grown-up with the keys you saw from the waist down who was a threat. And there's a funny story because we were picking up Reese's Pieces. That's what the kids were putting out for them. And they had tried to get M&Ms, and some vice president of something at M&M turned them down. And so they went to Reese's Pieces and their sales went through the roof. So anyway, I was tracking this creature. And I went to Steven at a certain point and I said, you know, I think it would be a mistake if the film allowed either adults or science to be the villain. So that scene that you saw in the operating room where I said, I'm so glad he came to you first, Elliot, and I've been waiting for this for 10 years old, Steven let me write. And I wrote 3 drafts of that scene, and then his scriptwriter, Melissa Matheson, did a final polish on it. And so he knew there was going to be a switch. I was not going to be difficult, because one of the things is these were children without a father. And so they didn't want to have the only male figure that was prominent in the story be a threat or be a danger. They wanted him to be somebody who would be empathetic with children.
Yeah, because Spielberg partially, you know, when he's writing this story, I mean, his parents had gone through a divorce, and so
That's
he was bringing that into the story as well.
That's right. And you need to remember that even though he'd made, I don't know if he'd made Jaws yet, but he'd made Close Encounters, but he was still not the Steven Spielberg that we know today, who was this awesome, you know, unapproachable figure. He had a little trailer, we had open access to it, and this was his little movie being made on the Universal lot. And it was very special to him, and it was all pretty low-key.
Yeah, he had had success with Close Encounters, but yet, and it had gotten all these Oscar nominations, but yet I understand Universal would only give him, you know, a fairly, for that time, a modest budget.
I think it was a table, and it had a cable coming out of the back of it about the thickness of my arm, and it snaked about 30 feet into another room, and it had 7 handles on it. And there were 7 men in front of television screens back in this other room. They couldn't see anything. And let's say one guy would work the eyelids and the eyes going back and forth and up and down. Another guy would move the mouth. Another would move the tongue. Another would move the head. Another would control the pupils. And they would 45 minutes setting it up, and they had some lamps with blue gels on them, you know, blue cellophane. And Steven came in, he said, I want blue light. And Alan started this long technical explanation. See, you can only use this much, it'll cut down the lumens going to the film, and blah, blah. And while he was talking, Steven grabbed a big roll of blue cellophane and walked around and wrapped it around all the lights, and bingo, blue light. And then another time we were in the forest where E.T. takes off, we were way up in the redwood trees. It was cold and damp. We were up in Crescent City, California, up by the Oregon border. And we're freezing, we're standing around, and guys are hauling lights and hauling cable and hauling this, and we're there for about 5 hours. Nothing lit, nothing going on, and finally Steven says, hit it. And they flipped the lights, and there was the poster. All the redwood trees, the little ET, the big shafts of...
When you see the picture now, how do you feel? How do you feel about the picture when you watch it? What does it do to you, having been a part of it and now probably seeing it many times over the years at occasions like this?
Well, there's two things it does to me. The one is, I'm 72 now. I see myself at 40, and so it's like watching myself die. Oh yeah, that's what I used to. I was pretty then. But actually, what it really does is I'm filled with awe at those children. I mean, when you look at little Drew and you look at Henry Thomas, who's a San Antonian, by the way, little Elliot, to generate that emotion and that truthfulness, and to generate those tears and that real feeling day after day after day, it's awesome. And I don't think, none of us, I suppose it's not telling tales out of school, none of us were ever hired by Steven Spielberg again. We had a big meeting where we all sat around and talked about it once, and the kid who plays Elliot's older brother in the film, the blonde curly-haired boy, he's working for the post office in Phoenix. I mean, so, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and Steven, of course, went on to bigger and better and more productive stuff, but we were part of a very small, exclusive club, and we feel pretty bound together.
You worked with Spielberg, of course, and Roman Polanski,
Yep.
and Almodovar, and a lot of great directors over the years. And so I wonder, what are you looking for when roles come your way? When you see scripts, what are you looking for about what you want to do?
I'm looking to have enough money saved so I don't have to get on a plane.
A very
again.
practical answer.
I'm actually a writer that makes his living as an actor. And I love acting. It's been really good to me. It got my kids through college debt-free, and it paid off a couple of houses and a couple of ex-wives. But, I'm 72, and I like to stay home, and unless it's really special, I don't want to go to Bulgaria again and do Revenge of the Zombies 4. So I'm getting ready to do a film for a young son of a friend of mine who went to film school. Kid was a jazz pianist when he was 15, and I always thought he was a great kid. And he just sent me a brilliant script. And I'll do 3 days for him to help him, and it's exciting because it's like starting a new career. But unless the language is surprising, unless the character is interesting and something I haven't seen before, I'd rather stay home and write.
Yeah, I was going to ask also, because you have a very strong personal philosophy and Zen Buddhist, I believe.
I'm a Zen Buddhist priest, yeah.
Yeah, so how does this coincide with your, career?
Well, it doesn't. There's no conflict.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the message of the movie that's important. It's how you make the movie. So no matter what your job is in life, unless it actually hurts people, I probably wouldn't work in a nuclear bomb factory or make, poisons to kill people. But in any situation that you're in life, it's going to be a mixture of positive and negative things. And so if you always choose the most positive choices that you can make in that situation, you're a Buddhist or you're a Christian or you're whatever you're doing. So when I go to work, I treat everybody the same way. I don't treat the director differently than I do the lowest PA on the set. I'm on time, I work hard, I'm not impatient. And so the way I do my work is my Buddhist practice. And sometimes the content of the film is something I agree with, sometimes it isn't. But rule ourselves hippies. We were pretty hard cases. I wrote that book. That book's been in print for 15 years.
I wrote, yeah, and I lived the life too. I can tell you some good stories.
So it's called, the book's called Sleeping Where I Fall.
Uh-huh.
It won a Pushcart Prize for Literary Excellence, a national prize.
Wow.
It's being used at Harvard and a bunch of other schools for people studying the 60s. And I call it a hard but fair appraisal. In other words, it looks at the 60s, it doesn't say we were all so great, it was all perfect, and it doesn't say we were all so foolish and stupid. So it's called Sleeping Where I Fall, it's still in print. And then I finished another book called The Rain Man's Third Cure, which just got sold last week. It'll be out in spring of 2015, and that's about getting from that world to a Buddhist priest and all the people who steered me rightly or wrongly and helped me get on a good path.
So if we Google your name and book,
Oh yeah, if you Google my name or just go on Amazon and put
Yeah.
Peter Coyote or go to your independent bookstore is even better.
Oh, okay.
And they'll look it up. Yeah, I've written a lot of stuff. I do a lot of writing.
Ooh.
Any other questions about either tonight's picture or about Peter Coyote and his life? I was going to ask also, again, going from that period of the 1960s and 70s when you were a part of a lot of experimental theater, and then what was it in you that clicked that led you out of that and into film and television acting, which many would say, oh, that's a more traditional role.
Oh,
so to
yeah.
speak, you know.
So I'd been an actor in a street theater in San Francisco that became really famous. We went to New York, we won an Obie, we traveled the country, we were like revolutionary actors, it was great. Sleeping with a lot of college girls and preaching revolution, and I had a really good time. And then I spent 15 years in the counterculture on communes, and I became just the best heroin addict that I could be. And when the communes fell apart and I wound up with a single daughter, her mother had run away, I was a single dad, and I had to do something. And luckily a friend got me a job working for the governor of California, and I ran a state agency for him for 8 years, and I made a big success out of it. And I thought, wow, I'm pretty good at talking to people. I don't have to stay just a hippie. I want to check myself out and try the movies. And I said I'd give myself 5 years, and I'd give it like everything. I figure you could always have a bad year. So I said I'll give it 5 years, and if I don't make it, I won't die with the what ifs. I'll figure out something to do. So I did, and I got lucky. But you know, I had to make a living. So when I was a digger, we did everything without money. We did everything anonymously. We made the first free stores, free food, free medical clinics. We did all that. We were the first people to do that. And when I started working for money, a lot of my old-time friends got really cranky. But you know, a lot of them had inherited trust funds, or they had jobs, or I had nothing really. I'd lost my family farm, lost my land. I had nothing but my truck and a child to take care of. So for me, it was just a career, and I was going to do it as best as I possibly could and be as good at it as I could be. But you know, it's not like I'm like Marlon Brando or one of these great genius actors. I'm as gifted as I am. I'm better than a lot and not as good as some. But there's space for that. Not everybody has to be a genius to succeed in life and make a contribution, and it really treated me very well. I'm very grateful, but I don't mind leaving it now and not doing it unless I want to.
Yes, sir.
Peter, I got a question. You know, everyone has a legacy or wants to leave something behind. What do you think your legacy, or what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I hope it would be to be remembered as kind. Really, that's about enough, you know, kind and truthful. I'd settle for that. I mean, that's a tall order. The Dalai Lama said his religion is kindness. And to me, that's what Zen practice boils down to. That's what Jesus's parables and statements boil down to. And that's a tall order to live up to. And as I get older, it just gets simpler and simpler. I don't care about a big monument or a big prize, but if I could help some people end confusion or suffering, or help some people get on a good path, I feel I feel pretty okay.
Beautiful.
Well, that seems like a good